This episode is brought to you by Netflix. So Netflix is basically Santa this year. 2 NFL games on Christmas Day, streaming live. At 1 p.m. Eastern, it's Cowboys, Commanders. Then at 4:30, you've got Lions, Vikings. Midwest football, playoff stakes, and probably some snow. Watching holiday football is a tradition the whole family can enjoy. Open some gifts, grab some food, settle in, and watch NFL Live on Netflix this Christmas Day.
¿Hablas español?
Sprichst du Deutsch?
Kan du norsk?
If you used Babbel, you would. Babbel's conversation-based techniques teaches you useful words and phrases to get you speaking quickly about the things you actually talk about in the real world, with lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts and voiced by real native speakers. Babbel is like having a private tutor in your pocket. Start speaking with Babbel today. Get up to 55% off your Babbel subscription right now at babbel.com/Spotify. Spelled BABBEL.com/Spotify. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Hi, I'm Daniel Licus, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the book starter ride for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is a fellow podcaster as well as an author and the author of the book The Sprinkle Effect, a guide to creating a more colorful and fulfilling life. No other than Miss Debbie Weiss.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yes, welcome, Miss Debbie. Did I pronounce your last name correct?
You did.
Wow.
Great job.
Thank you. I have a second thought. Should I pronounce it Weiss, West, or West?
You guessed right.
And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Sure. So my name is Debbie Weiss. I am a newer author. Came out with my first book in 2023. The Sprinkle Effect is my second book. And it's a career I never dreamed of, but am very excited to be a part of this author community.
Yes, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Miss Debbie. Hoping for more and more empowering books like this to come. So tell us, what inspired you to create this book?
Well, around the age of 50, I had a bit of an epiphany. The majority of my life has been as a family caregiver. I started taking care of my dad when I was 17. He was only 46 and he had a massive stroke and luckily survived, but became permanently disabled. And I was his caregiver for the next 30 years. And then when my oldest son was 2, he was diagnosed on the autism spectrum and added other diagnoses, including some mental illness diagnoses. And then the last few years of my husband's life, I became his caregiver, and specifically the last 6 months after he was diagnosed with terminal blood cancer. And, you know, around 50, my husband was still alive and healthy then, but I kind of had this aha moment where I realized, wow, that first 50 years flew by. I have a nice life on paper. You know, I have this nice family, live in this nice house. I have my own insurance agency. Like, you know, everything seems great, but my life was just extremely stressful because of the overarching demands of life. But then add on top of it, decades long of caring for other people with never caring for myself. And at 50, I thought, boy, in a blink of an eye, my life is going to be over. And I don't want to be that person that looks back with regrets. And around that time, that's when I said, it's up to me to shift my focus, change how I'm doing things, which certainly didn't mean not taking care of my family members, but it also meant taking care of myself and my own wants and needs in addition to theirs. And I've been on that journey. I'm 62 now, so I've been on that journey for over a decade. And after several years of making some changes that really impacted my life, I realized I need to share this with other people. But how? How am I going to get to these other people? And I don't know. Whispers just kept coming up and little clues like maybe you should write a book. And I thought, write a book? I can't write a book. I'm a math girl by trade. I'm not a words person. I don't know how to write. And one day I was listening to a podcast and the host was interviewing a woman who helped first-time authors get their stories out there. And I thought, man, I think that I was meant to listen to her today. And I connected with her and wound up joining a small group course for first-time authors to get their stories out there. And I guess you can say the rest is history.
Indeed. And thank you so much again for sharing your history to the world. Let's start with the beautiful title. What is the sprinkle effect, and why did you choose the imagery of sprinkles to represent a more fulfilling life?
Well, because here I am, 62 years old, but there's something that brings me joy from colored sprinkles on my ice cream and hearts and balloons and my birthday, all these things, just saying them makes me smile. And so when I was thinking about the whole idea, I realized that how did I change my life? And it was really sprinkling in little changes, not one overarching thing. Boom, I did a 360 and completely changed my life around. No, it's really the idea that these small little sprinkles add up over time. And so in the book, I talk about specific sprinkles. Each chapter is a sprinkle, such as a sprinkle of belief, a sprinkle of perspective, of action, of discipline, of curiosity. And altogether, there are 17 sprinkles that together make this beautiful rainbow of sprinkles that also adds color to your life.
Add color to your life. I like that, Miss Debbie. Sprinkles are often about external color and joy. How does your concept deeper beyond just surface level happiness to create a genuine, lasting fulfillment?
Because what I found is that when I started to really learn more about myself and I started to take more risks, stop getting out of my head and saying, I can't do that, I don't do that. Just like I said to you in the beginning, I'm a numbers girl, I'm not a words girl. That would have been in the past where I stopped. But what I found is when you take that extra little step across that line of fear, all of a sudden, all the good stuff waits on the other side. And when that happens, your life just naturally becomes exciting and joyful. I actually had dinner with people last night that I've known for probably about 20 years, and I don't see them that often. And they said to me, you are a completely different person. They said, I can see it in your expression, in what you say, in just like kind of your aura. And I said, it's true. I feel like a completely different person than I was a decade ago.
Miss Debbie, tell us what or was there a specific moment or period in your own life where you realized the need to actively sprinkle in more color rather than waiting for it to happen?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I think it was right around the age of 50. At that time, I was struggling with my weight. which has been a lifelong struggle for me, but I was more than 100 pounds overweight at that point. I was, quick to anger all the
Mhm.
time. I was constantly stressed. And, even though on the outside, you wouldn't have known it unless you were my immediate family members, you would have thought that I was happy and carefree because that's always the way that I act. But on the inside, I was really, really struggling and really crumbling. And so I just knew that if I didn't take control and do something then, that, either my life wouldn't be too long or the remainder of my life would not be what I want it to be.
Miss Debbie, your book is a guide. How do you help someone discover their own unique color palette? In other words, how do you identify what truly brings them joy and fulfillment versus what society tells them should?
Mm. When I wrote this book, I couldn't decide exactly, I don't think that anybody can be an authority on anybody else's life. So
Yes.
the way that I've structured each chapter was I told a personal story about my own journey with that sprinkle. And, sometimes people can see themselves in your story, even obviously if none of our lives are exactly the same, but at least gives you an idea of, oh, I see, or at least points out maybe a perspective that they never thought of before. And at the end of each chapter, there are exercises that you should do. And I say in the book more than once, I've been that person who reads a book, skips the exercises, gets annoyed when someone says, take out a pen and answer these questions and journal on this and all the things. And I'm like, roll my eyes. But what I learned is if you just read the book, it's going to be another one of those books that you just throw on your bookshelf and never think about it again. And so at the end of each chapter, I do have those exercises. I actually created a companion workbook so that if you wanted, you could have it all in one place, all of the exercises in one location. And when you start doing those exercises, I have seen it. That is a period of self-discovery. Nobody can discover what lights you up and what's going to make your life more colorful other than you. All I'm doing is asking you the questions, but it's up to you to answer them.
Definitely. It's up to you,
That's it.
people. You're the driver of your own selves. Many adults feel guilty or self indulgent for prioritizing joy. How does your book give readers permission to actively seek out and incorporate more play and color without shame?
I agree with you that so many of us feel that it is selfish, and I did as well. But what I found is that when I did prioritize myself, my joy, when I began taking care of myself, not just in doing fun things, but even setting personal boundaries, which was difficult for me, and just protecting myself. What I found was I showed up as a better person for everyone else. So taking that time, it wasn't selfish. I mean, in my case, since I have been a family caregiver, I was always, snapping at my father every time he said hello and I was practically jumping down his throat. That's not the way to show up for people, for anyone. And so when I started prioritizing myself, I started showing up better for everyone else. So you think it's selfish, but you're doing yourself a favor and you're doing everyone around you a favor as well.
Definitely. And Miss Debbie, sprinkles appeal to our senses. What role do you see engaging our live senses, sight, sound, touch, taste, smell, play in building a more vibrant and present life?
I think that depends on the person, right? It's
Yes.
whatever works for you, whatever brings you that same feeling. For me, like I said, it's the things that kind of seem a little bit childish, but it doesn't matter. I'm not afraid to say that I like balloons and my birthday and ice sprinkles on my ice cream and those kinds of things. They're each different, right? Some are tactile and some are visual and
Yes.
some smell good. Not that ice cream really smells, I guess, but if you get close enough, it can, depending on the flavor.
Yes.
um, and those little things bring me joy. I really do find that I started, one of the things that I started to do in one of the chapters is within the chapter that is a sprinkle of joy. I talk about a gratitude practice, which when I was first exposed to that, I was a real naysayer, which I do really tell people in the book. I thought, no, gratitude practice, really? This seems ridiculous. I mean, obviously, I'm thankful. I'm thankful I'm alive. I'm thankful for my house. I'm thankful for my dog, all the things, right? What is
Yes.
the idea? I'm going to just say that every day? How is that going to change anything? And a friend sent me a gratitude journal. And I was annoyed. And I thought, oh my goodness, now she gave me this gift. She's going to ask me how I like it. I'm going to have to use it. And it had some prompts, and every day I would pretty much write the same thing of the things I'm grateful for. And one day I was out walking my dog, like I do a million times a day, every day. And I looked up, took my head out of my phone and noticed like the sky was a particularly pretty color blue. And I just made note of it. And the next morning I was like, oh, when I write down what I'm grateful for, I'm going to write about the sky, which I did. And what I wound up happening was subconsciously, I really started noticing things around me that I never paid attention to before. Things in nature, things every day that I went to, the pharmacy and I talked to the same clerk and she knew me and I know her and we have our little conversation and, you walk out with a smile because I enjoy talking to her. All of a sudden, I realized really how rich my life was. And that in itself taught me just by doing that brought so much more joy into my daily life.
Miss Debbie, as a podcast host as well as an author, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
That's a very good question. Well, I think my short and long-term goal is to get my message to every person who is like I was at a point maybe in their life. Maybe they're going through some kind of transition. Maybe it's a midlife thing. Maybe it's divorce or empty nester, retirement, whatever it is. Or you're like I was, where I thought, well, this is my life. I guess this is it. It's fine. I really didn't have any big dreams because I didn't. I guess this is it. And there's nothing I can do about it. And I should just be happy that, it's not so bad. I want to let everyone know that that is never the case. That regardless of your circumstances, no matter how old you are, no matter how little money you have or how much debt you're in or what your personal circumstances are with relationships or whatever, it doesn't matter. There is always something that you can do to start creating the life of your dreams. And stop making excuses, because that's what I did for the majority of my life. And the minute I took responsibility and started making my own choices and owning up to my own decision making, my life began to change. So my goal, whether it's through selling my books, having people read my books or any of my other products, or me being able to speak as I do in front of live audiences, or as well as on podcasts, just getting my message out there to as many people as possible. And like I said earlier, I'm 62. I don't ever see myself retiring from this. There's not a
Definitely.
day that I will stop, because I think it's that important. And I know that if you saw where I was to see where I am now, anybody can make a change.
Good luck to your goals, Miss Debbie, and looking forward for more success. And tell us, what will be a piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
I think I would say that you do have to be honest with yourself. I blamed so many things that happened to me, that because of those things, that's what got me into where I was in my life, and that I had no control over it. And I believed that to my core. I wasn't making that up in my mind. It wasn't a story I was telling myself. And then I was exposed to a formula that really resonated with me from Jack Canfield's The Success Principles. And the formula is E plus R equals O, which means event plus response equals the outcome. So in my case, let's just say my father had a stroke. The outcome, lousy. Yeah, my father had a stroke, and that is lousy, right? But that didn't necessarily mean that his life or my life then had to turn out lousy, because I was forgetting that there was an R. And the R was how I responded to that event, right? I just thought, this is bad. And it's life, right? We all have our own ups and downs. They come at different times and at different sizes, and they're different for everyone, but we all have them. And really, our life's path is predicated on how we respond to those events. So I would really say to take a good, hard look, an honest look at saying, am I playing the victim in my life? Because I was. I had a list of all the reasons why, well, this happened and this happened and this happened and this happened, and oh, poor me. Yes, poor me and poor you and poor the rest of us. It's life, and it's not a comparison game. Just because those things happened didn't necessarily mean that the outcome had to be crummy. It was because of me. It was because of how I was responding.
Thank you for that advice, Miss Debbie. So, can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
So I think that a set of books, and I don't know if you're familiar, I know a lot of people are, the Badass series by Jen Sincero, really influenced me, because they're short, they're funny, they're relatable, and they're wise. And reading her words made me believe, well, yeah, why not? If she can do it, maybe I can too. And so many, for me, a lot of personal development type books that I read, sometimes for me, they're too scientific. Like that doesn't work for me. It's just too much. It's too wordy. It's too complicated. I don't want to have to read a sentence over 3 times to really try and understand what it means. I found her books to be a nice mix of great advice that made me smile, that made me laugh, that's easily digestible.
Good, Well, Miss Debbie, thank you for that recommended book. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well, geography 101 in third season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and mental health 101, love letters in third season, and movie 101 review and music 101 in fourth season, and science 101 and sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Miss Debbie, if our listeners take away only one thing from our conversation of your book, what is the one mindset shift or action you invite them to embrace today to start creating their own sprinkle effect?
So I guess it's probably timely advice with the newest Wicked movie coming out soon. But a quote that resonated with me quite differently than when I was a child is by Glinda the Good Witch. And she said, "You've always had the power, my dear. You just had to learn it for yourself." And
Yes.
yeah, I think that, for me, I just thought that meant, yeah, Dorothy, you could have just clicked your heels 3 times, say, "There's no place like home." At the beginning of the movie, you could have been home. But it's so much more than that. Each of us has the power within us to do whatever it is that we want to do. And we just have to realize that we have it and kind of take back our power. So I'd say I'd leave the listeners with that. Realize that you have the power within you. Don't get overwhelmed. All it takes is just one little small sprinkle, one little small step to start yourself moving in the right direction.
Baby steps, people, baby steps. Miss Debbie, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So can you please invite our listeners to support your podcast or your books?
Sure. The best place to find me is my website, because you can find everything on the website. And it is DebbieRWeiss.com. You got to put in the R, otherwise you'll wind up in a realtor in California.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Debbie Weiss, because if you support her, for sure, more and more empowering episodes of the podcast itself, more and more empowering sprinkle effect will rise. So, Miss Debbie, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
More to come, people. See you soon.